Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Adam W. Rodriguez, and this is The Art of AWR. Welcome to my channel. Today, I am going to be doing a book tag called the Krampus Book Tag. I was tagged by David from David's Book Reviews. If you have not watched David's Book Reviews, dude, you're missing out. David's Book Reviews is great. David has got this very genuine and kind style about his presentations. He gives very genuine and honest book reviews. He is really good at reaching out to the community. He does a lot of shout outs. He does a lot of book giveaways. He does a lot of buddy reads. He's a lot of fun to watch. You should totally go watch his stuff. I'm going to leave his information down in the description below. He totally deserves more followers. So David's Book Reviews is great. And David from David's Book Reviews was the very first booktuber to actually comment on one of my booktube videos. You know, just very kind and encouraging, and I've got a lot of great things to say about David. But I'm not going to spend this whole video talking about David. But David is the first guy to actually just tag me personally, like, hey, Adam Rodriguez, you should do this tag. So I'm very excited and happy to do this for that reason, and because I love the Krampus, man. The Krampus is so great. If you don't know from watching videos prior, or if this is your first video, I love folklore. It's one of my favorite things to just read about and study, and the Krampus is amongst some of that winter folklore that I like so much. If you don't know the Krampus is this horned creature that is sort of a counterpart to Santa Claus. Where Santa Claus shows up and rewards the good children with toys, the Krampus shows up with Santa Claus to punish the bad children by beating them with reeds. You know, this handful of reeds. It's great. It's wonderful stuff. This is a really fun tag. David from David's Book Review created this tag. So, hey, anybody watching this, consider this an invitation. Consider this a tag. Please do this tag. Get this bad boy out there. I'm sure David from David's Book Reviews would be happy to see this bad boy spread out here in the Yuletide season. Awesome. Cool. I need my glasses to read this whole thing, so putting back on. All right. I do it with backwards noise, if you didn't follow. Cool. But before I begin this list, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel. If you like videos about creativity, literature, comic books, art in general, subscribe to my channel. Like this bad boy, this here particular video. Hit that bell so that you get notifications every time a new video drops. Maybe even comment down below. We can have a conversation. I like talking to people. All right, I'm done with the plug. Let us jump right into the Krampus Book Tag. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. The man himself. Question 1. Which fictional character would best portray the Christmas demon? I would pick Edward Hyde from The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I would mostly pick him for 2 reasons. One, I want to kind of have a children's theme throughout this tag, just for myself. This is not a rule imposed by David. This is sort of a rule I've imposed on myself. So, Edward Hyde in the actual book, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, at one point does just barrel over this kid in the middle of the street. I remember kind of half chuckling, half going, oh, that's, what a jerk, But it was this one tiny little element in the story where he is kind of crappy to a kid. But the other reason, and this is the main reason, is that since the Krampus is sort of this dark side of Santa Claus, I think it's pretty cool to use Edward Hyde as my example to play the Christmas demon, because Edward Hyde is sort of this dark side of Henry Jekyll. So that's why I picked it, and if you have not read that book, it's great. I'm sure everybody already knows what it's about. It's kind of considered some early Victorian Gothic horror. It's about a scientist who wants to remove himself from his sort of evil thoughts and evil inclinations, right? And so he creates this formula to separate himself from it. And what it does is it creates a sort of dual identity. Henry Jekyll, a little bit more meek and kindly. Edward Hyde, without reservation, totally the evil parts of Henry Jekyll. So anyway, go read that book. From what I remember, and I read it, gosh, long time ago, I didn't really enjoy the prose so much in that book. I remember it being kind of a difficult read, but I do love the concept, and it's amongst some of the more foundational Gothic horror and Gothic horror monsters. So it's a very short read. I don't remember enjoying it terribly, but I'm also glad that I read it. So I'll probably reread it at some point because I want to do a review on it later on. But that being said, that is the end of question 1. Hopefully not all of these answers will be that long, but we shall see what we shall see. Question number 2. Is that sleigh bells? I'm all doing these gestures and stuff over here. Jeez, what a ham. That was the prompt. Which fictional character deserves to be visited by the Krampus? Well, you know, I'm thinking about bad kids, right? Bad children. And one of the first thoughts that I had when it came to bad children was Abigail Williams from the play The Crucible by Arthur Miller. If you're not familiar with it, it is about the Salem witch trials that happened in Salem, Massachusetts. It was this, and it's like early, I think 1790s period, where this one young girl, and she and several other girls were like caught out in the woods dancing and engaging in some sort of pagan ritual with this one house slave. And instead of being punished, she started to act like she was like paralyzed and bewitched. And then the local priests or reverend started to like question like what's happening, what's going on, did it have something to do with this weird pagan ritual? And then Abigail just kind of snowballs from there, like yeah, it's the pagan ritual, you should punish that house slave, you should, oh my gosh, it was goody so-and-so and goody so-and-so, they're bewitching me, they're paralyzing me, they're torturing me with their spirits. And it snowballs into this great big Salem witch trial where several people are hung and tortured, have their lands and property taken away from them. And it's all because this one girl convinces several other young girls to lie, to create this giant fraud where all these people end up suffering because of their lies. So I would like to see, right in the middle of the big courthouse scene, the Krampus to come bashing into the courthouse and just start waylaying these children with the bunch of brambles, just like, quit lying. That would be great, right? That is number 2. Next, number 3, bedtime stories. What horror book best fits the festive season? Well, okay, I have to admit, I don't read a lot of books based off of when they are, so I can't really think of a lot of books where I'm like, this is a book that's set in Christmas or Christmas times, maybe fall, the cold winter months, that kind of thing. So my most recent book that I read in the festive season happens to be a horror book that is called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I was introduced to Stephen Graham Jones by a friend of mine who had suggested his writing, and I think it's great. It was a really good book. And it's set just before Thanksgiving. In fact, they mention that the climax of this story happens just like the day before or a couple of days before Thanksgiving. The book itself is about these men who are from this Indian reservation who, while out hunting, proceed to engage in something awful, something kind of dark enough to enrage a spirit that will eventually come hunting them in their later years. It ends up being a really, really cool story. I don't want to go much further than that. It's really, really cool because it's set in sort of like 3 books, right? Like you gotta like one, because these guys have like separated over the years. You know, one guy who's living off of the reservation, another guy who's kind of like on and off, and then there's these folks that still live on the reservation. Anyway, Stephen Graham Jones is wonderful. He is a Native American author who has written a horror story using creatures from Native American folklore. And as I said, I love folklore. And the creature in this book is actually pretty adjacent to a Krampus in a way. There's retribution involved. There are horns and hooves involved. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it is a creature that I have read about, and I was very, very happy to see a cool story using that particular creature. So that's all I'm going to say about that, other than you should read Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians. Great book. Awesome. Next, number 4, Devilish Gifts. What is one strange fictional item you would like to receive from the Krampus? All right. If there is one item that I have, like, when I read the story, when I've seen movie and TV adaptations of this story, every single time I engage with this story, I'm like, man, if I had that thing, I know exactly what I would do. Or like, boy, wouldn't it be great to have that thing? And that thing is the lamp from Aladdin and His Wonderful Lamp. I originally read it. Now, naturally, I think the first time I remember watching, I think like a silent film or something about Aladdin, but I do remember like the Disney movie, and there have been several adaptations of Aladdin. Anyway, actually, I might have even like originally saw it like in Looney Tunes or something like that. But anyway, it's a great story. And when I first read Aladdin, the original tale, I read it in 1001 Arabian Nights, which is an anthology of like Middle Eastern folklore. It's interesting. This whole tag is starting to kind of turn into a folklore thing too, which I really like. Anyway, it's Middle Eastern folklore. So it's got great monsters like jinns and genies and afrits. This particular story is really, really cool. It's really, really short. I've read 1001 Arabian Nights in sections. I've never read it in its full form because it's so many different short stories. The concept is you have this king. I can't remember what the equivalent of the king is in this story, but you know, there's a ruler whose wife was unfaithful. So he has her beheaded, and then he starts to marry virgins, and then he will like spend a night with these virgins and then have them beheaded before they can be unfaithful. It's really, really very problematic. So the vizier to this guy, I can remember that title, the vizier to this guy, his daughter, right when we're starting to like run out of virgins in the land, she volunteers herself to be his next wife, and reluctantly the vizier offers her to the emperor, the king, and when he takes her in, right after they get married, the night before, she starts to tell him this story. And the concept of the story is so interesting to this king. Right before they go to bed, she stops the story short on a cliffhanger. And the guy's like, well, I'm going to stay your execution until the next day, right? And then the next day, she would come in, she would finish the story, start another one, end it on a cliffhanger, and then, you know, that's how the story progresses. It's a really cool concept of being able to tell multiple stories all within one story. And even within the story, there are people telling stories within stories within stories. It's really kind of a mess, but in a lot of really cool ways, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of literature. There's a lot of problematic stuff in 1001 Nights. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of sexism, bigotry. It's loaded with all of that stuff. But it's also got a bunch of iconic, cool characters and stories, such as Sinbad the Sailor and Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. I've gone on for quite a bit about 1001 Arabian Nights, but it's a wonderful source of really cool Middle Eastern folklore. That is that. I'm going to stop talking about it now. So, question 5. Food, glorious food. That's from Oliver Twist, the musical. Nice. What is one unusual, fictional or real, well, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to start over. What is one unusual food, fictional or real, you would like to eat for Christmas dinner? Easy, easy peasy. I want some spice melange from Frank Herbert's Dune. If you're not familiar with Frank Herbert's Dune, Frank Sherbert. Oh, wow. We did an ice cream called Frank Sherbert, and it's just basically like frozen spice melange. Oh, my God. That's great. I just came up with that just now. All right, good. Give me 2 scoops of spice melange. I am one with the universe. Anyway, that was a fun tirade. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Frank Herbert's Dune, it is a sci-fi fantasy epic, and it all revolves around this desert planet called Arrakis. And the reason that is the case is that this planet is the one place where you can mine the spice melange, and you mine it from the sands of Arrakis. And this stuff, the spice melange, it is a basically space drugs. So yeah, I want space drugs for Christmas, Krampus. Bring me the space drugs. So Frank Sherbert. The whole book is this political intrigue between great houses amongst the planets. It's got a great amount of politics and action and really cool bad guys. Fun tech, very fantasy-esque as well, because it's got this kind of, mental powers that folks can get by taking the spice melange. The spice melange is this space drug that allows a person to tap into the far reaches of their own mind. It allows people to fold space in on itself and travel great distances and stuff like that. So it's like hardcore space drugs. Okay, that's it. That's what I want. Spice melange. I'm going to sprinkle it on my pumpkin pie. Nom nom. Maybe give me some Frank Sherbert. I'm gonna play with that all damn day. Home for Christmas. Question number 6. Home for Christmas. What is one dark and dangerous fictional location you would like to visit for Christmas? So I think I'm gonna check 2 things off of my bucket list. I've always wanted to go to Antarctica. Briefly, I hate the cold, but there's just something about this empty, frozen wasteland that is quite interesting to me. It almost feels like being on another planet. You know what I mean? Just like the idea of Antarctica. So Antarctica, yes, but I want to go to a specific location in Antarctica that is found in fiction, and that is At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. Therein, beyond or within the Mountains of Madness, is this ruined city, this ancient city that's been sitting there for millennia. And as these explorers in the story traverse through the cyclopean, ancient, ruined city, they discover these mosaics, these murals and relief paintings of this ancient alien society, the sort of rise and fall of this ancient alien society. And the book itself comments on just how expertly the art is done. It's just mind-blowingly great. So just the idea of going to Antarctica and then going to this ruined city and basically traversing a museum of ancient, mind-blowing alien art sounds amazing. And I would take a bunch of selfies with me next to alien horrors. And when the Shoggoths show up, hey, maybe I'll take the hell off. Me and the Krampus just whip right on out of there. So that's what I want to do. At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. It is one of his longer stories. He usually writes them super, super short. But At the Mountain of Madness was longer. But he does still write stories very, very short. So it's worth the read. It's one of my favorite H.P. Lovecraft pieces. People have been trying to like adapt it to a movie forever. I hope that happens one day. All right, cool. Let's move on. I told you enough about that story. I don't need to go on. That was Home for Christmas. Number 7, question 7. Location. Where would you like to travel with the Krampus / who would you like to visit with the Krampus? Okay, so where would I like to travel? I've thought about this. I want to travel somewhere where me and the Krampus can chill. Right? Where the Krampus is not totally out of place. So I'm thinking about all these weird fantasy lands like Middle Earth, which I don't know if a goat guy can really hang out a lot in Middle Earth. Maybe Oz, I could see goat guys hanging out there. But what I ended up deciding was Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Well, based off the adventures of Alice in Wonderland and Beyond the Looking Glass, I believe are the right titles. There's some wordplay in there that I'm probably messing up. But anyway, by Lewis Carroll. Wonderland is just kind of this weird, absurd place. And there's something about absurdity that I have always enjoyed. So even if I know what's going to come around every single corner in Wonderland, I'm still going to be like, this is weird and delightful. So that's where I want to go. I want to go to Wonderland. If you're not familiar with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, it's about a young girl who follows this white rabbit down a rabbit hole and ends up in this strange and absurd land where adventures ensue. And that's all I'm really going to say about that. Most people know Alice in Wonderland. I want to visit, the second part of this question, the person I would like to visit in Wonderland is probably the Mad Hatter. Or just the Hatter. I don't think he ever introduces himself as the Mad Hatter. But I think that me and the Krampus would be quite comfortable sitting there at a table with the Hatter and the March Hare and the Dormouse. And maybe even Alice, who is kind of ambiguous as to whether she's like naughty or nice. So like maybe even the Krampus is there to just be like, I'm watching you, Alice. Me and you, Al. Be good, you know what I mean? And then we'd all hang out and like tell riddles to each other, how is a raven like a writing desk? And we're all like, I have no idea. Would you like some orange sherbet, some Frank sherbet to put on your pie? Why, thank you. Whoa, now I know how a writing desk is like a raven. Yeah. Do you know how a writing desk is like a raven? Mention it in the comments below. I must know. Maybe you'll be rewarded with some Frank sherbet. Anyway, that's where I want to go. That's me. I'm done. That was location 7. Number 8, second to the last question. We're almost there, you guys. Locking horns. What fictional character, good or evil, would you like to see battle against the Krampus? Well, I'm really glad David went there. I mean, we're at battle sections now. Now, honestly, I appreciate the Krampus. He's a retributive spirit. I want to see, because we're buddies at this point, We've already been to, like, Wonderland. We've been doing Frank sherbet all day, drinking tea with the Mad Hatter. We're buddies now. So I want to see him win whatever fight he's about to get into. So going back to sort of my theme of children in literature, I picture the Krampus going to Victorian England and seeing all these kids being pickpockets out in the streets, and he starts collecting them. He starts beating them with reeds. He starts kidnapping them and take them to his lair. And then he starts to realize, hey, these kids really aren't that bad. They're just on the verge of starvation. And some old asshole has been teaching them how to steal. And that same asshole just likes to take all of their stealings and then leave these kids on the brink of starvation so that they continue to steal and perpetuate this criminal behavior. So anyway, he steals enough of these kids for old Fagin, the asshole aforementioned, for old Fagin, who has been like keeping these kids on the brink of starvation and taking all of their loot. For him to come to the Krampus's lair and be like, hey man, you got all my kids. And the Krampus like, all right, I've been waiting for you. Let's go, Fagin. And Fagin, you know, he's kind of a weaselly, wiry old dude, but I don't think he would last very long, especially if it's like Mr. Hyde beating the tar out of Fagin. Now, if we're lucky, Fagin would bring some backup, and his backup would be this guy named Bill Sikes. Now, Bill Sikes is an even worse person than Fagin. Bill Sikes is a wife beater. He's an angry, bullyish drunk. He's a criminal. He likes to exploit these kids just as much as Fagin does. So Bill Sikes might hopefully show up, and then hopefully, right after the Krampus dispatches of Fagin quite quickly, him and Bill Sikes just go right at it, and Bill Sikes ends up with a couple of horns up his poop chute. No Frank Sherbet for you, Bill Sikes. Anyway, that was exciting for me. Thank you, David, for letting me explain to you. Oh, by the way, Bill Sikes, Fagin, and all of these kids are from the book Oliver Twist. It was also kind of half inspired by Food Glorious Food, the prompt earlier, but Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. It's a really, really long ass book. I remember reading it and like loving chunks and hating chunks. I don't know if Dickens is necessarily for me. I'm probably going to read Christmas Carol, and I've been wanting to read The Tale of Two Cities. Oliver Twist is the only one of his books that I've ever read. But like I said, I did enjoy good chunks of it. Oliver Twist is about a young orphan boy who at one point ends up on the streets picking pockets, and, you know, crazy, wild adventures ensue around this young orphan boy named Oliver Twist. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that book. And let us go to the final question of the Krampus Book Tag. Number 9, Spreading the Fear. What book, fiction or nonfiction, would Krampus give to Santa for Christmas, and why? I have pondered much on this, and my answer is neither fiction nor nonfiction. My answer is A Player's Handbook by Gary Gygax. That's right. It's a D&D book, you guys. The Krampus wants to play D&D with Santa. That's why he gives him said book. What else are they going to do the other 364 days of years when Santa's not passing out toys and when the Krampus isn't passing out ass whippings? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to sit down and do some epic dungeon delves with Santa Claus, maybe with Mrs. Claus, maybe a few elves, all rolling up characters and rolling them bones. I wonder if elves actually just play elves in D&D. Maybe they play a dwarf. Maybe they want to, like, you know, break away from the usual D&D tropes. Who knows? I'd be interested to see the D&D game that the Krampus runs. The D&D games that the Krampus runs. Would you all like some Frank Sherbet? All right. Wow, that was interesting. I'm totally sober, you guys. I'm just like high energy right now. I just finished school, so I'm just like, yay, I've got time for things like making videos here for BookTube. So I hope you enjoyed watching this here book tag, the Krampus Book Tag. Let me share with you a little bit of art that I've done because I love the Krampus so much. Check this out. Bam! I painted that in 2016, and then I also painted this. Yeah, you know what I mean? The Krampus is great. David's book reviews is great. This tag is great. You guys, do the tag. Consider yourself tagged. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I know I really enjoyed making it. Until next time, ciao.